Off. All right. Brent's there. Copy invite link. Oh, we're live. Okay, we're live. Yeah. Hey, Brent, how are you?
I'm doing well, and how are you doing, Ken?
I'm doing good. All right. We both have guitars in our background now. So mine's in a case. I see yours. I see the head there on yours, and there's mine that you used to play when you were here. I see yours back there behind you. So, um, both Brent got started very late in life in guitar, and I've been playing for oh my god, ever since I was like 10 years old, on and off. But got to get back onto that because I love playing guitar. But anyway, welcome. So, how's weather down there in Mexico?
It's actually lovely, but of course, it's generally lovely down here. It's one of the reasons why I decided to set up shop here. So, and
Yeah.
yourself, how's it doing out there?
Well, it's actually turning into winter. I can't believe it. November, it's winter. Jeez. It's cold, and so that's why I got these long sleeve shirts on. I prefer a nice white sand, warm beach over cold, but I do ski too, so it's not too bad. But I get tired, when the dark comes too early, and when the winter gets cold, you just want to snuggle up and hibernate in bed. But that's just me.
Well, I always tell people that snow is a God's way of saying don't live here, and I'm just trying to be obedient and just run down south and escape the cold.
Well,
Great
cool.
success.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know you're doing pretty well down there, and so it's the let's kind of get started on this. I just want to kind of have this AMA. Well, kind of not an AMA, more of a podcast, I guess, because we're what we're going to do is we're going to over the next few days we're going to go ahead and release the testnet to the first 50 people. It's going to take us a a little bit of time to onboard them because there's things like we have to get them signed up. If they're using an iPhone device, we have to get them set up for what's something called test flight. So maybe you should add that to the Notion thing when we're at it, when we're done with this. We have to get those people that are using the iOS device to sign up on test flight. Otherwise, the program won't run on the iPhone. But what we're going to do is we have our shoot 'em up game, and that is going to be one of the test applications. And then we're going to have the wallet available for Linux, Android, iOS, Mac. It probably is not going to be available for Windows yet. Windows has given us a little bit of problem in compiling, but soon after we onboard everybody else, then we can kind of get the Windows version working over the next week or two and onboard them. But Linux should work. Linux definitely works.
No.
And if anybody has IoT devices like a Raspberry Pi or anything like that, just let us know because we can build. We can build for that because we build for the Orange Pi already. I'm not sure. It probably should be 64-bit, I think, on the Orange Pi or the Raspberry Pis or any IoT devices. I think our 32-bit version was working, but in general, most of the 32-bit devices don't have a GPU that is compatible with the neural network stuff, the mobile neural network thing, I believe. We've kind of found that out, but there's some work being done on that as well. So in general, I think that it's going to be nice because Brent and I were just talking about, when we release this, the ZK Snark stuff is kind of not done yet. It's very, very, very close, but we're going to go ahead and release this because we can just re-release the wallet and the shoot 'em up game to the testers at any time once we get the ZK Snarks working. We'll have to migrate them, but it's very simple for us. We were just discussing that. We were thinking, oh, we have to write this big migration code and all that. And then Brent's like, no, 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 no. We only have like 50 people. We could just transfer their balances. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple and stupid. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Yeah, I know, I know. Keep it simple, normie. So I don't like
Yeah.
to dumb things down. Keep it simple, normie. Yeah. I made so I don't know if anybody else has coined this phrase, but I just did something in Twitter where Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk were having an argument, or not really an argument, but Elon's like, well, I heard through the grapevine, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, that Jeff Bezos was saying that Trump's going to lose, and that you should sell all your Tesla stock and your SpaceX stock, and then somebody put in something below that says Jeff Bezos denies this. This is misinformation, not misinformation, but context. Jeff Bezos 100% denies this, blah, blah, blah. And then Jeff Bezos chimes in to Elon and said, 100% I did not say that. And I chimed into his, and I coined a new term, and I said, while I'm no big fan of Jeff's, I do think that he's smart enough not to be that dumb. I love that. I don't know if anybody else has ever coined that term, but you're smart enough not to be that dumb.
I actually think that something akin to that was used with the whole debacle in the 1980s with the new Coke. When people are wondering, was that really such a great plan for Coca-Cola to produce that? And the CEO, after the whole mess, said, answered questions to the effect of, we did this. No, we're not that dumb. And then to other questions, he answered, no, we're not that smart. And a lot of it was just kind of an accident and how the whole thing stumbled out. But it's a little bit of the same energy there.
Yeah. It just came to my mind when I was reading that. And I'm like, even, Jeff, I don't have anything against him, right? And I'm not a fan of his either. So I'm just kind of neutral on that. But it was just, it seemed really like anybody with, an inkling wouldn't have made that bet, and starting to, stab yourself in the back or shoot yourself in the foot, as they say. But anyway, I digress. I'm not really political. I don't want to talk much about politics, but in general, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the stuff we are working on the ZK snarks. We're having a little bit of, I don't know. It's a long slog to get, all this stuff in order because, the Nil Foundation's compiler, they kind of pivoted a little bit. But I think this morning, Henrique said he had a lot of that fixed, but it's not complete yet, for sure. We're still trying to generate the proofs and all that and make sure the circuifier is working. And sorry for getting in a little bit technical here for you people online, but it's kind of, if you watch our GitHub, you'll see what we're attacking right now and the big problem that we're trying to solve, which is the last part of that, to verify that any of your transactions are valid. But we don't need that for the testnet necessarily. That's if, somebody was trying to hack our mainnet and things like that to make sure that those proofs are used to make sure transactions are valid and things like that. So you want to add to that, Brent, about just kind of overall what everything is that's going on right now?
Certainly, we've got, we're kind of like doing the Santa Claus thing. We got our list, we're checking it twice, and working through, the team with their reports of, all the things that are working, ready to go. And, even with this little bit of a hiccup with the ZK snarks, it's like, okay, look, we can go ahead and put this on testnet and watch, all the parts playing together, and get a whole kinds of feedback on that. While in the meanwhile, we're burning time on adjusting the ZK snarks. And, and from that, we're going to also learn what kind of perhaps small adjustments we want to make to structure of ledger, data structures, etc., so that when we finally go to mainnet, that is a necessity. You have to have the way the ledger is structured and what the ZK snark circuits are capable of. Those two things have to align. So we're just working through those details, and we're perfectly able to cordon that off and say, okay, we're working in that separately while we go off to this kind of, you want to call it pre-alpha, but we're on the test net and watching all the other plumbing work. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to call this kind of testnet phase one. And we've always said, and from the beginning, that we're going to do this in phases and kind of roll this out. And even in phase one, we kind of have a rollout where we're going to have, okay, Linux devices, you're good to go. Go ahead and download the wallet and check it out. And you'll be a node in the network, and you'll start seeing things happening. And then, like I said, we have to get, we have an Apple account, but in order to make you a tester on an Apple account, you have to sign up for this test flight thing or give us your UUID is how it used to be. But now it looks like you don't have to do that anymore. But you can sideload something called sideload, which just means not going through the Google App Store for Android. And I think, I believe Henrique had Android compiling the Super Genius code compiling this morning on Android. I think he said that. We have the unit tests that are, we don't need to worry about this stuff. So I have a list here of things that we're talking about for phase 1 and 2. Some of these things aren't necessarily, is cleanup, like unused contract code, move to a separate branch. That's more cleanup stuff. Yeah, side load for Android. Oh yeah, I see something. Somebody's in here typing. Oh, that's you, Brent. I see you.
Yeah.
um, the unit test, yeah, for fuzzing, that's ongoing. That can be done during testnet. Most of that was previously done, but we hired a new guy named John who does smart contract auditing and has written books about it. And he's basically doing fuzzing on the testnet contracts. Those are already launched, by the way, and I updated the docs .gnus.ai to show the smart contracts, the test net smart contracts. That's not the full test net. There's two pieces to this. And something I want people to understand is that we released the test net contracts on Sepolia, Base Sepolia, Binance Smart, Test Smart Chain, and Polygon Amoy. And that is just one piece to our overall test net. The second part of that test net is the Genius and the Super Genius blockchain test net, which is this last part with the ZK snarks. And so when we say testnet's launched and, really going, we had to make sure that the Super Genius blockchain is the last piece of that. Everything else is there and running. Mm-hmm. And in fact, our dashboard and our wallet can interact at any time with those smart contracts on the testnets. And those testnets, EVM testnets, the smart contract testnet launches will actually allow us to test before we launch onto the mainnet. So they're upgradable. And as soon as we're done testing and that all works, then we just force those over to, in one fell swoop, over to the main nets. And we don't have to do anything other than deploy them over there once everything's done. And then it'll be live and upgraded. So it gives us a chance while we're testing all this to make sure that it fully 100% runs on the smart contracts test nets. So anyway, anything you want to add to that, Brent?
Well, actually, more of a question for you, Ken. I mean, in chatter this morning, you were putting emphasis on having jobs, submitted in a continuous fashion during this test net, for the 50 people who are participating, and that makes sense totally. However, omitted from your commentary that I saw this morning was any reference to the dashboard. And I would think that we would include that, unless you've got a reason to not have that included.
No, absolutely. That should be launched and we should make that public. And what that also allows is, I think what you're alluding to is that even though we're doing these test AI processing things, you now have the ability to run either through a command line or through the dashboard and run your own AI in there, right? And we encourage that. So that's actually if, we have other people that have AI and they want to test it out and they want to run it and see how the models work on our system, we more than encourage that. Everything's there and operating. In fact, you can do it from the command line interface, something called CLI, command line interface, or you can do it through the dashboard. And I even think we have now in the wallet where you can upload a JSON file that is the configuration for the AI that you want to do. So all of that stuff is the meat of the project, right? This blockchain stuff is just like the last kind of annoying thing for people to get paid. Everything else works, right? I mean, it's been working for a while, but it's just now we're trying to focus on the payment side of things. And that's why we're kind of taking our time, because that's where hackers want to be. They don't care to hack our AI and make the model, blow up. Well, maybe they do, but in general, they're after the money. Right. And so that's why it's taken us a while to launch this, is we want to make sure the money or the payouts are secure and really, really secure. And so, but we can go ahead and launch this kind of phase 1 of the testnet, knowing that the 50 people that are going to be there are getting testnet tokens, which are going to be valuable, by the way, because we're going to convert those based on, some future time value, saying, hey, now you own 500 Genius tokens, we're going to go ahead and convert those into Polygon or Ethereum real Genius tokens as a payment for you helping us test the whole entire network. And then the fact that we can charge people, they have to get Testnet Genius tokens from us. We can actually, to do their own real AI, we could actually use that in a treasury and pay out to all our holders and slowly build up. People can start using the AI and doing their processing, and then build that treasury up, and then convert that into real, it will be in real Ethereum or real USDC or whatever on our mainnet contracts. And so there's no reason that we couldn't say, hey, those 500 tokens, if you want to convert those, we got paid out for it, we'll pay you out in the Ethereum or the Genius, based on people coming in and starting to use and slowly roll into our AI processing tool set.
Now, something I would like to add into that, Ken, is, as we proceed and we are monitoring transaction logs, et cetera, certainly, should there be some kind of what Elon Musk calls a RUD, rapid unscheduled disassembly. And someone's like, oh, look at this. One of our testers has 1 billion Genius. That's where we're going to say, hold on, something doesn't look right here. We're talking about, earning real Genius. At the same time, we'll be watching carefully, because we're not going to allow shenanigans like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's why it's on Testnet. And I think I've explained that before, is this is what we're doing, is we're basically saying, hey, look, if you're real and you're helping out and you're really making money, the Testnet tokens, then we'll pay you out. But if all of a sudden you have 1 million tokens, and you have to go through us, right? And so we can vet all that stuff, which is awesome. That's kind of what we're after. So let's look a little bit over. I'm looking at your kind of deployment stuff. That's already, you have some stuff in here for tasks phases 1 and 2. I should have really checked a lot of these off, because the smart contracts are already deployed, and they're going to be able to be upgraded. I see that you're including fuzzing on the MythX stuff, and so that's additional stuff that can happen during testnet. So that's already ready to go.
So for the listeners who are listening to Ken kind of review this, there are multiple structures of how I'm viewing, kind of like rotating the whole problem. Where is the work that remains to be done? Where is the last pieces of glue? And Ken is now talking about this most recent compendium I put together, and he's absolutely right. As I've been putting this together, particularly in the last 24 or 36 hours, all the checkboxes that have not been transcribed from the previous lists. So actually, much of what he's looking at is in fact done. However, I still want to have that kind of holistic picture of this was everything that went into the testnet. So Ken, you're absolutely right. Shortly after, today, I expect to be calling in the team to go through different sections of this with me, and so we can check it off, and we can keep on focusing down to, okay, these are the 3 things or whatever that we really want to put our time into.
Yeah, and this is not holding up testnet, just for everybody to be sure. I'm just kind of going through these, like for instance, one of them he has in here, the wallet balance, fetch from L1's CF, whatever that means, chain stack. Yeah, cross-reference chain stack, and fetch from Genius, and that is, I think they're done. Fetching from Genius there was one. I'm not sure if that's completely done, but I think it is. But there might be like one thing we have to do today to fix for fetching from Genius. So it's either done or it's it's mostly done, and we just have to fix one thing to launch, like I said, in the next couple days.
And I myself will get to a place where a developer tells me something's done, and I'm like, can we look at the test for that?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I can be a little finicky about sometimes items being checked off.
Yeah, and also this, just so you know, some of this is for Brent's own peace of mind, because the ERC 1155 design review, he just doesn't. It's a great. I should have made an ERC myself for the particular hybrid token. In the bridge in stuff. It's just him not knowing what I've done, 3 or 4 years ago with that stuff. And so he just needs to get up to speed on what that is and how that integrates and things like that, more than there being any work. I mean, it does say design review, right? And it's just Brent double checking me, the big jerk off, they're
Yeah,
jerk.
I have paranoia issues, and
Yeah.
and just because I'm paranoid does not mean the black helicopters are not coming for me. So anyway, yeah, I like to check everything 3 times.
Yeah, he does. Ledger design, jobs, costing, calculating. Yeah, there's all this stuff. Like again, like I said, is not holding up test network. It's just stuff we have to review and check out during testing in the test network more than anything else. So
Correct.
it's a great long thing on Notion and things like that. It's just filling Brent's head with all the the information and making sure he's sure that the black helicopters aren't coming for him. Well, cool. Anything else that you can think of that maybe we want to talk
Well,
about? I think.
something that I'm like wagging my head over is we had spoken of having a mechanism of some kind where we could get reports. I saw this happened.
Oh, yeah, we have that on GitHub actually.
I
We
mean, so
have
we
a
can put issues right there.
yeah. Well, we have a public issues that people can
Yeah.
add to them, and that's kind of how I'd like to do that because that allows us to have some curators on the front end so that we don't bug all the developers all the time because there's going to be a lot of issues and I'd like the admins and some curators to kind of curate that before
Yeah.
it gets sent to us in the back end because that'll disrupt us from moving forward. And
Well,
so
that's
that's how
kind
I
of
typically set it up.
you're kind of wandering into what I was getting at, which is if instead of having like accidentally 13 people post kind of the same thing, to have that a little bit narrowed down, or at least someone watching what's being posted for issues, so we don't have to look at too much noise.
Yeah. Yeah. We really need this is where I've been talking to some people where everybody, like I went to Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and was talking up there, and there's a bunch of kids, oh, are you hiring? I'll do anything type of thing. Right. And, I said, well, you kind of have to know C, just because, you got to curate this stuff and make sure that, somebody reporting something isn't, you got to determine whether or not it's actually a real bug or it's something that they're doing wrong or any kind of number of things. So we really I need to kind of get some interns in here to start to curate the incoming public bugs as we call them. And there is a repo for that already. So yeah, that's something you and I should focus on, Brent, this over the next couple of days to see if we can find a couple people to help curate that and maybe pay them out in Genius tokens to do that. So, all right. Well, did you look at the questions to see if there was any? I mean, we didn't plan on doing like AMAs, but last week or a couple weeks ago, I think there was some questions that came up. Most of the question is when WEN testnet, when testnet, right? Okay, here you go. We're going to do phase one here. And I think the one thing that we do have to do is get the data together, like I said, for the 50 people that signed up and get their devices, device type. And I don't know if we'll have to get them signed up if there are any iOS or OS X Mac people that are using it. I'm one to sign up for something called Test Flight on Apple. I'll have to figure that out. I'll take care of that, but we'll have to get the admins to kind of curate a spreadsheet of all the people that signed up and what devices they have so that we know what to give them. Because there's going to be an opportunity to either play the shoot 'em up game or download the wallet and just install that as a service on your other device. So that may be one other thing that the shmup may be easier. The shoot 'em up may be easier than the wallet, just because installing a service on a device sometimes can be a little tricky, a daemon or a background service. And I think we tried that, and I think it's working, especially on Linux. And I think that's one of our nodes is already up doing that. So we just need to make sure that like that can be done on Mac as well, because we know Linux is working, but it's going to be like, hey, if you have a Linux device, here you go ahead and install this, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, if you have an iOS device like an Apple iPhone, you're not going to install a service. Here, go play this, shoot 'em up. We might even have an opportunity for anybody that has like a streaming service to go integrate with the SDK, and then go watch YouTube video or whatever streaming service is. Go watch whatever service that is, and you'll be helping out, earning tokens in the wallet. Of course, the wallet will be available on iPhone and Android as well, so you can see the Genius tokens you're earning, but it won't install in the background and be operating like a service like it does on PCs or set-top boxes or IoT devices. So that's just kind of the way it is. Android maybe, but I don't think we're going to go down that route of installing a service on Android as a background application. But if you're running the wallet and you have the wallet open, then it should be earning tokens, or it should be part of the network at least. So you can have both. You can be running the wallet and you can be running the shoot 'em up, or have the wallet installed and have the shoot 'em up installed. And depending on which one's in the foreground, that's the node. And that's actually a good test use case for us. So if anybody wants to, it's good for them to have both of them installed.
This time we're spending right now, Ken, wasn't billed as being an AMA, so there, I don't have a list of questions. I do see that in the channel there is a question there, which is how do you determine the first 50? And it may be that that is something that's already been compiled, but I'll just throw that at you.
Yeah, and it was compiled already, and we did kind of a lot of first 50 to do that. But I'm not against, after we start to onboard these guys, taking on more. Slowly, taking on the next 50 to come into the testing side of things. I believe I said something, and it's mainly to make sure that we're not overwhelmed by the number of people we have to onboard. Like if we got 50 iOS devices, it'd be like, oh my God, I got to go. We have a limit to the test flight number of users that can be on test flight, I believe. And I don't know what that limit is. It used to be like 100. I don't know. Let me see if I can limit device limit. Expanded to, you can now gain even more valuable feedback by up to 10,000 users. Geez, okay, nice. Well, they've upgraded that. It used to be 100. Okay, so testers up to 100 internal testers and 10,000 external testers can download test. Okay, yeah, we should be fine on that. It used to be 100, and they didn't used to have 10,000 external testers. But if but it says apps up to 100. Up to 100 apps can be tested. Devices, each internal tester can have up to 30 devices. Okay. So external testers, I wonder how many they can have. Let's see here. File size, blah, blah, blah. You can't use a managed Apple account to test builds. Yeah. I'll have to figure that out, because if 100 internal testers can have 30 devices each, that's kind of crazy. That's like, what? That's 3,000 devices for internal testers. How lovely. I'm an internal tester. I at least have 10 devices that I could test with. Just wonder what the 10,000 external testers, they probably only can have one device, but that should be. But cool. All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad Apple upgraded that, because now we can really, if we had 10,000 iOS devices talking to each other over the net, I'd be really comfortable with that test being successful, because that means we've done our job correctly, and I believe we have. So
we do actually have a couple more questions that are coming in here, and let's see. I mean, one question here: how secure is the wallet in terms of percentages? I think that's for me, that's a kind of a funny question. What percent secure is a wallet? Is like, well, it's securing your private keys, and it's like other wallets, it doesn't hand them out. So,
well, there's a good question in here about, is there ever a time or price where Genius becomes uneconomical for clients to use? And the answer is no. Basic answer is no, because even if it was, let's say it was $10,000 a token, right? We still, the only thing that it does, well, let me explain why the answer is no first, and then I'll explain kind of what the benefit of getting in early is that even if it's $10,000 a Genius token, and you've when you pay for the processing, it's based off of an 80% reduction to any market out there in terms of US dollars. And so if it's $10,000 a Genius token and the price of doing a particular set of processing based on the size of the processing and the time it takes to do that processing ends up being $1, then you will use 1/10,000th of a Genius to do your processing. So it'll never become uneconomical to use for that purpose. Now, on the side, one of the side benefits of that, and also we can actually kind of even control that if it got so bad that nobody wanted to, Genius was just on the move. It was 10,000, then it was 20,000, and then it was $30,000. We can actually overcome that by minting tokens that have been burnt to kind of slow that volatility down. The only time I can actually see where it become uneconomical is if the volatility is so high that you can't buy it because it's just moving around too much, right? But we can solve that. We can say, okay, well, right now it's 10,000. Okay, go ahead. We'll mint you some tokens. Okay, now the price is 20,000. Well, we already promised we'd mint you tokens at $10,000, per Genius token. And so that's how we kind of prevent more yeah. So we'll probably only ever mint new tokens if the volatility gets too high, right? So that you can't execute the utility of the token. And so I don't think it's going to become a problem, but we have the levers there to mitigate that. So, which is pretty cool. But if you get in early, that's the beauty of it, is like if it does become very volatile or does hockey stick up, and you've had your token and you hold it. So let's say you're one of the first users and you're earning Genius tokens and they're $7 right now, and you earn one Genius token at $7, and you're like, oh wow, it took 3 weeks to earn that $7. Just like if you mined Ethereum back, at $179, if you would have just held that Ethereum, it's now worth $3,000. It's the same exact thing. So you just got to hold it until you want to sell it, and should just keep growing, just like Ethereum does, and just like Bitcoin does. It will be volatile, of course. Hopefully not as volatile. I think I put some levers in place to make it not as volatile as some of the other cryptocurrencies.
Let's see. I got some more questions I see that are kind of not many, but a little bit rolling in here. Let's see. You answered that first one.
So here's one. In terms of the previous LP exploit, have you guys upgraded to make sure this never happens again? Yeah, that's what we're doing right now, is we're using our own kind of bridging system to make sure that it doesn't happen. And that's the whole point of the testnet. We also, if we ever go back to cross bridging in terms of like Axler network, we will have to upgrade to make sure that a contract is securely created with a multi-signature one, so nobody else can create those contracts. And we have something called Open Zeppelin Defender that we can do that, which means that we have upgraded to that, where our deployments are now multi-signature deployments, so nobody can deploy a fake contract on any other blockchain like they did before. On top of that, we would also make sure that we keep track. In fact, we do this now in the Super Genius blockchain. We keep track of what what network the blockchain is from for us to bridge to. So like, for instance, if you wanted to bridge your tokens from the Ethereum network, we have to have the ID of the network, which is 1 for Ethereum. And we have to use something called remote procedure call to call the Ethereum network to make sure that you actually did burn on that network. So we kind of built that into the Super Genius bridging part of it, where it absolutely 100% has to call known smart contracts that we know about internally to guarantee that that was actually burned before you mint. And speaking of that, there's one other test I want to make in there, because somebody could create a contract on Phantom. They could probably hack the um, they could hack a version with the SDK that basically said, yes, we burned over there, but then the rest of the network would be going like, okay, well, we don't know what RPC to map that ID to, so we're not going to accept that burn and mint for the rest of the network, because they're going to be like, we have no access to that RPC call, or that we don't know what that contract is, so we can't call that particular contract because the rest of the network doesn't know about it. So it's kind of a built-in security mechanism, and also with the ZK snarks that prevent this kind of hacked or faked smart contract and with just an address. Because the problem with the liquidity pool exploit was there was no communication on what network that burn came from, and that was the biggest problem with that. So we've since kind of built into our I wouldn't call it consensus. What would you call this, Brent? Where all of the nodes will not accept the new database entry unless they pass the ZK snark, right? That's not really consensus. I guess it's proof that the transactions are valid, which is usually what you want with consensus, that everybody agrees.
Well,
But the ZK snarks are what's proving that everything's valid.
well, in this case, it's almost like we're discussing chain of custody,
Yeah.
and say that we're validating that. So
Yeah, I guess it's the validation part. The validation is no longer it's permissionless validation. That's what it is. Permissionless validation that the database record is correct. And the permissionless part of that is the ZK snarks, right? They're doing it through cryptography and zero knowledge of the internals of that. And that also introduces privacy into the transactions as well. So yeah, it's this is why we think that, and I personally have this vision that we do not need proof of work or proof of stake, because we're using ZK snarks to do the what previously people were using for consensus, right? Or mining, for that matter.
certainly, much of what most consensus algorithms are concerned with are proofs that are needing to be handled very explicitly, rather than what a ZK snark does, which just rolls up those proofs. So it is certainly a simplification. This is why there is so much activity, and it's such a hot topic. Is applying this field of mathematics to what is otherwise the growing world of blockchain. So I wouldn't be surprised that even with existing networks like Ethereum, and even after all they have gone through with recent upgrades, that this is the sort of thing that over the course of the next couple of years that they themselves may say, okay, now their major upgrade, we want to use this, and we're like, of course you do. So
yeah, I see a question in here. Will the marketing push happen alongside with the first testnet stage? Absolutely. We just signed an agreement, and we're going to be doing a some good AMAs on some major channels, or podcast, I guess, on a major channel that we've already signed an agreement for, and we were just waiting to kind of launch this first testnet stage. As soon as we do this and we start, seeing how much of our focus is attributed to onboarding the first phase of this. I don't want to overwhelm the guys and everybody, scrambling. And I don't think we're going to have to, because, like I said, we'll have some people in there that can curate the bugs and things like that. But yeah, so I think that the marketing push is definitely going to happen here very, very shortly. Probably not next week, because next week's Thanksgiving, and we are not going to have this AMA next week on Thursday on Thanksgiving itself. So just so you know, Brent, you're free. You can go eat turkey or whatever, roast beef or whatever you do. Anyway, so all right, cool.
Well, how do we want to conduct the tail end of this? Because I think we're kind of there. I don't know if we're going to go through all these questions. Maybe we've got time. What do we have for schedule?
You know, let's just answer a couple more questions. I see a couple things in here, and we'll just take them one by one because
Mhm.
I don't want to answer any other older questions, but this one's a pretty good one. With the release of Testnet, what you previously mentioned, the time frame being for mainnet release. Um, you know, it is kind of unimportant for us when that happens, and here's why. Like I said, when we start onboarding and pushing people onto it, like 200,000 nodes from the Philippines. Once we get to that stage, and you know, whatever that takes, a month or two or 60 days, it everybody else that's coming on board will be able to come on board and start to make Genius tokens money. They're just gated onto the test net before we convert those to the main net. So getting the main net release for everybody is just going to be like, I don't know. To me, it's almost just going to be like, hey, we're going to throw the switch that, now all the stuff is running through the main net smart contracts instead of the test net smart contracts. We're just going to throw the switch, and so the main net release is like, okay, when we're comfortable that it's been operating and we feel like it's pretty secure, let's go ahead and flip the switch on the main net. And that's pretty much it. And so it's hard for me to give you a timeline because I want to make sure everything's functioning, and it almost doesn't matter. Like I said, we could remain on the test net forever and everybody could earn tokens and earn Genius tokens, right? It's almost like an isolated thing from the main net. The only thing that it I don't know. It's going to grow the token on testnet, I think, anyway, because when people can start using the AI and machine learning stuff on the testnet, we almost don't need to have a main net release, really. But we are going to do it, of course, officially. But give it some time. I would hope early 2025, but no guarantees. Like I said, it's absolutely not necessarily to have a mainnet release. It will pretty much, in my mind, be a stamp of approval in a tweet or a public relations release saying, hey, we're satisfied that we're pretty secure, so let's call it mainnet.
Mhm.
It's not like we're going to be releasing some new code or some new functionality or anything like that. It's just going to be like, yeah, we're comfortable that the automation of you getting the Genius tokens will flip the switch, right? I mean, do you disagree, Brent? Anything else you can think of?
No. Yeah, it doesn't seem to me that there needs to be, tremendous ceremony for that process of switching over. So, agreed.
Other than marketing and everybody going, oh, we've proven ourselves and it's operating good and the AI is happening and now we're official, that we're a real project, or that we're not going anywhere. And I can guarantee you we're not going anywhere no matter what. So yeah, it's I don't know. To me, mainnet is like a stamp of approval, right? Which I don't need validation from anybody, but sure. Not to be negative. I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of a mislabeling of our particular way of doing things because our mainnet test contract or our mainnet contracts are already launched. We'll upgrade them, you know, but you can upgrade any other mainnet that is upgradable. We could say we're launched on mainnet already, really, and then we're just working on security to upgrade it because of the liquidity pool exploit, right? But I don't want to get into semantics on that. But anyway, that's kind of my answer. It's hard for me to pin down an exact date on that, just because, like I said, we're going to be operating as a fully functional network that the test or mainnet prefix on those is almost irrelevant to me. That's a good way to put it, right?
Yeah. And again, barring shenanigans, someone shows up with a billion tokens. It turns into like, hey, what just happened here? Okay. Let's see. Did you grab all the questions, Ken? I think.
I'm just looking at the chat here. I don't know if there's any on the on that other whatever that's called, that other question. I'm just getting them from the chats here.
Yeah, I see a question about patents.
This is so funny. Hey, Kenny boy. Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to skip that particular one. The only person that ever called me Kenny in my life was my mother. So just so you know, it's it's funny because people have tried that before, and it's just like whatever. I don't respond to Kenny. I'm old enough to be your grandfather. Would you ever call your grandfather Kenny? Oh, well, maybe Grandpa Kenny, but I guess. But I don't go by that, so it's a nickname that I don't. It's more. It almost. I don't. I'm not going to drone on about it because I've been called Kenny Boy before by other people, and they think it's insulting, but it's just more beneath me to even respond to it.
This person did give a congrats though for the testnet launch coming up. So
He probably didn't mean anything by it. I mean, there was some other Canadian once did that, and he saw that I was like, I don't go by that, and then he just started, hey Kenny, hey Kenny, hey Kenny, and I'm just like, okay, we're done, bye. It's like I don't need to dwell on that. So if he didn't mean anything by it, that's fine. But I don't go by that. So just so you know, and he spelled it wrong anyway. It would be Kenny, not Kennie. Just so you know, Eric Bessemer. Can I call him Erica instead? No, that's a Trumpism. Oh,
Don't
you're
do
going to call
that.
me Kenny Boy? No.
So okay.
Can you show us any proof of the patents you got, Regine? Yeah, well, one of the patents is online. The main DPIN, it's at the patent office. The other ones are patent pendings that we filed, one or two of them. We have 4 in process, and again, Brent and I have some work to do on that. We have to review them. I think they're good to go. We filed 1 or 2 of them. We have 4 total patent pendings that we're filing that add to the main patent, are kind of enhance certain areas of the main patent. And so, will we enforce them? And that's usually a long and costly process. Well, there's been talks about funding patent litigation and stuff like that. I don't want to deal with that, but there is some talks, and they've been talking to me. And I said, look, if somebody wants to enforce that, maybe there's a couple people, a couple companies that I may want to enforce that against, only because they got almost $50 million, and they started in 2013, and their white paper just pretty much ripped off Genius. When you start to rip me off, that's different. When you're just in the AI processing space or the compute processing space, they're all competing with each other, and we're not competing with them. So they are in violation of the patent, but we're disrupting that anyway. So it's very, I don't know. I'd like to move forward and not. It is costly and long, and I've been in litigation before, and I hate it, and so I don't really want to get into it. But I'd rather just work amicably and join forces with some of these people, and maybe trade tokens or something, and license the patent to them. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about doing, is just going to some of the ones that I know they want me to join. They want Genius to join we're in talks or initial real initial talks about joining the superintelligence network thing. But I know they usually like to buy out the company for their tokens, and I'm not going to do that. But I would partner with them and maybe do a token swap with them, and then cross license the patents that they have with the patents that we have. I'd much rather take the amicable route with that kind of stuff. Emperor again. Okay. No, don't do that either, because then they'll be like, "Oh, the emperor has no clothes." And I'm like, "Face palm." Yeah. Yeah, that with the Barbie jokes. Yeah, I used to get that growing up. Yeah, "Hey, Ken, where's Barbie?" And then, yeah. But I married a good Barbie, but her name is, not Barbie, so, but she prefers, they say, her name's Sheena, and they go, "Oh, Sheena, what was it? Sheena, Queen of the Jungle," and she's like, "I prefer Goddess of the Wild." So yeah, so we've been through all that stuff, but we're now too old to like. It's like that's so high school.
There was another question here about why did we use, why are we preferring ZK snarks over garbled circuits? And my answer to that is because we want the non-interactive capabilities of the snarks and the garbled circuits. And unless you're talking about some kind of specialized design, those are actually
Oh,
interactive.
yeah, so I actually looked at that technology, and actually we could leverage that, but it would be upper level. It wouldn't be for the ZK snarks. It
Yeah.
would be more for when we use that when we write the shaders, not the circuits, but the MNN, the neural network shaders, and things like that. We could use the garbled circuits in there. And actually, I thought it was a pretty good technology because it actually is better doing it that way, but it's not on us. You can write the shaders with those garbled circuits in there. And what that does is that makes it faster to do privacy preserving AI instead of using homomorphic encryption, something called homomorphic encryption. So, yeah, so that's why I looked at the garbled circuits and they don't really work for what we're particularly using the ZK for, but they would work on top of our system when you want to do AI processing. You can use garbled circuits in the shaders themselves. And so it is something that I'm going to look at. And when we hire a bunch of shader people to start making all these, converting all the TensorFlow shaders into mobile neural networks, and there's already a bunch of them out there. Um, yeah, so that's kind of why garble circuits aren't the right technology for what we're trying to do with ZK snarks. Hopefully that makes sense.
So I think I'm seeing now just questions that are regarding marketing. I mean, we already touched upon that, but I think some people may have come late into the chat.
I would suspect right after Thanksgiving. So they wanted about 2 weeks notice to do kind of the marketing for going on the big influencers and talking about this kind of podcast through their system, which you and I, Brent, just so you know, Brent, that's kind of going to be lined up in about 2 weeks, I would guess. So we signed the agreement, and now the testnet, as soon as we, over the next week and a half, when we start scaling this and are ramping on people, on ramping people, then we will basically in a couple weeks, we'll start the marketing push now. But in general, the big kind of tier one people we're holding off on, but that will happen in a couple weeks right after Thanksgiving, to start to get exposure for our project. Is not to pump the price, just so you know, just to make sure people know that they can come in and start using AI in our system. That's what it's for. All right, we're about 7 minutes away from an hour, so I think we're doing pretty good.
I think we are.
I kind of like the ad hoc questions coming on as after we've done our talk instead of pre doing that, because I don't know. Then there's some good questions that we want to answer instead of when testnet.
Right? Yeah. Believe us that the testnet is like, it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's when you wake up. It's when you go to bed. If you're in our shoes, it's like there's nothing else in the world practically. So
I'm dreaming testnet every night. I'm dreaming solutions for it. And okay, what do we have left to do? Okay, we're good. I swear to God, it's like I wake up in the middle of the night going, "Oh, okay, yeah, all right, that's okay, that's good, that's working. Oh, we're so close. Go back to sleep." So you think you're stressed out about testnet? I'm sure some of the other guys are like, "Oh
Yeah,
no."
it's gonna be so fantastic to finally be past this point. Of course, then we get to no good deed goes unpunished. Then we get all of our, all the new stuff that piles up. You know, so
Welcome to software.
yes, welcome to software.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up 5 minutes early. Thanks everyone for joining and listening, and hopefully this was informative. And we'll try to keep this up as much as possible. And especially, I think once testnet is launched, we can start talking about talk about different projects coming online, the use cases, even maybe dive into like AI stuff that's being done, the different models that are being used. Just if anybody wants to kind of give us some feedback on what they'd like to see for the future of that. I mean, we talk a lot about development here, but I really kind of want to morph this into more of an overall I don't know. Of course, it's going to remain genius focused, but I really kind of want to morph it into you and I, Brent, talking tech and crypto and AI and things like that, and our view of the future. Because I've made so many predictions over the years that I kind of want to continue to do that, because they have these other podcasts and I listen to these guys, and I'm like, yeah, they're successful and all that, and they have millions and millions of users, but some of the stuff they say, I'm just like, oh my God, that's so off the mark. I was going to say another word, but I'll be politically correct, but so off the mark. Anyway. All right, Brett, I guess we can wrap it up here. Oh, why don't you give final thoughts on what you think?
I think just want to thank everyone for joining in. Appreciate everyone's patience with us, reporting on progress. And, if you're feeling like, oh, gee, these progress reports, are leaving me hanging, that sort of thing. Believe me, we were left hanging, as well. It's like, oh, one more thing. Oh, this other thing. Oh, piece here, So again, my thanks for the patience. Now that we're finally kind of getting to that point where we're going to cross over, as we've already been discussing. And it does sound like, and of course, a happy Thanksgiving for those who celebrate that coming up.
Yeah.
And otherwise, good here, kind of a Brent out sort of thing.
Yeah, Chill had a great comment here, just real briefly. Token use cases, potential clients, and overall solution to the IML industry. I think that's perfect. And I have at UC Berkeley, I did meet a guy who I have to set up a meeting with, who's actually here in Menlo Park, and he and I we want to do a joint venture together in real world asset type of things. And it's hard to find people like you and I, Brent, that we can talk to about this stuff. I found two of them at UC Berkeley. This very young gentleman who's out of Draper University. And we started talking, and he realized very quickly that I could talk ZK snarks, and we were just geeking out for like half an hour about it. He's like, I can never find anybody to talk about that stuff. And I'm like, I know. That's why I had to get up to speed on it, because nobody else knew what they were or how to talk about it. And I'm glad to find somebody he's like a couple miles down the road, which is nice. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to take it out to 10:30 apparently. All right, we'll call it here.
So with